Absolutely. It's nice to be with you, Lori, as always.
You're so kind. So Patrick has been running golf events for decades. Um, and as for me, maybe I can hang out in a miniature golf course, but that's pretty much the extent of my golf experiences. So, when we need to, we call in the experts, and that's why we've asked you to join us. Thank you, Patrick.
Hey, it's my pleasure to always spend some time with you, Lori.
So we're going to talk about raising money with golf tournaments. If you are new to Auctria, new to Patrick, we have a couple little introductory screens. If you're new to Auctria, actually, I need to update this slide. 40,000 auction and event fundraisers have come through Auctria. $400 million has been raised by amazing auctioneers and amazing organizations just like you guys out there. So congratulations to you.
That's awesome. That's what an incredible accomplishment you guys have done here.
Yeah, we're proud of everybody out there that's taken part. We've just given them the tools to do it. Patrick, tell us a little bit about gEvents, and then I'm going to ask everybody about themselves also.
Sounds great. Hey, Lori, thanks again to you and Rob and everybody at Auctria for having me today. It's I've been involved in producing golf events as long as I can remember, quite honestly. My dad was a PGA golf professional, grew up at a club working events, went to college, played golf, and then got in the golf event business back in 1990, I guess, 91. And had the opportunity to work with a promotional company that we were producing events all over the United States, everything from small charitable events to events on what is now the Korn Ferry Tour for the PGA Tour, have produced several national championships for the United States Golf Association. And when I left that company, I started my own, and we produced golf events. And then I kind of backed into starting to do charity auctions. And the two melded together just perfectly. So I went to the Worldwide College of Auctioneering in 2012, and started adding auctions to my repertoire. I only focus on charity auctions, benefit auctions. And then I saw how the two came together and how they fit really well together as a group. And so today we focus on producing golf events and benefit auctions.
Awesome. And you do such a great job at both.
Thank you.
Groups that use you are so lucky.
Oh, thank you very much. Hey, folks, there's several topics. I'm going to breeze over a bunch of information today. Feel free, drop questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer as many questions as we can. And I'll probably tend to go a little fast. I am an auctioneer by trade, so I don't worry about raising your bid, Paddle, but we're going to have a good time. And I know Lori makes the recordings available afterwards, and so we should have a lot of fun. A couple of things I want to talk about in giving you an overview of running fundraising golf tournaments is things that I've picked up over the last 30 years. I'm going to start with talking about design, budget, and creating a timeline. Then we'll go into some specifics with respect to choosing a day of the week, choosing a location, give you some insight on food and beverage, talk a little bit about format of play, because pace of play is such an integral element of these types of events for them being successful. We'll talk about some ancillary events to put around or during your golf event, and then we'll touch on gifts and awards and go from there. All right, Lori, we're ready to roll?
I'm ready.
There we go. So let's start with where to start, right? I think you want to talk to your audience and get a feel for what their ultimate experience would be from car to car, right? And what I mean by that is from the minute they get in their car to head to your event until they get out of their car when they're back home. Think about what that looks like for someone, and create that idea, almost like designing a house. When you talk to an architect, you talk about all the rooms you want, all the different elements you want, and try to identify what that ultimate home looks like, or that ultimate event looks like. And then based on that, you've got to realize you've got to have some inventory to offset the budget. And I think a lot of times the first thing we think about when we talk about inventory is we think about the playing spots. And those are absolutely crucial. But we also want to think about sponsorships in general. What are the different elements that we can incorporate into the event to offset the cost of producing it and while still netting a decent number for our organization. And then budget that experience and inventory. What is it going to cost you to produce those sponsorships? If you're going to produce a bunch of signage, if you're going to create special gifts, anything like that, create the budget for that entire experience and inventory. What does it cost per player to produce the event? And then price that inventory to meet your financial goals and make sure it fits your audience, right? You may design an event that has filet mignon and gives away a whole set of golf clubs as a tee prize, but your audience is used to paying $100 a player. That won't work, right? So make sure that your design of the event is focused on your audience. How do you maximize the return for your organization from that event? And then once you do, redesign it to fit those goals. And then once it's designed, the next step is to build the timeline to execute that event. And I think that if you just follow that general process, then you're on your way to having a successful event, and you'll know where everybody's going. So let's talk a little bit about sponsorships quickly. I would always tell you that they're a tremendous revenue resource. You can't overstress or prioritize enough the ability to sell sponsorships, because they usually come from a corporate checkbook and not a personal checkbook. And that's important because we find in our society that corporate checkbooks have a little bit more flexibility, Lori, than necessarily just a personal checkbook. If I asked you to support something using Auctria versus you, Lori, I'm going to get two separate worlds that I'm going to be able to access. And quite honestly, the corporate checkbook can benefit more from supporting with respect to exposure that you can provide them, name recognition, and just general brand recognition, and putting them out in the community as supporting your nonprofit. They'll stand to benefit a lot more than necessarily maybe your individual players. And then think about it as a value versus expense. Is what they're getting, is that a value? Or is it just an expense? You want to make sure that you're giving them value. And I think you got to be a little creative that way. Make sure that the pricing that you create definitely fits the value that they're receiving. And then also, I'm going to encourage you to prioritize your sponsorships ahead of participation only. So what you're going to end up with in almost all of your sponsorships are going to have playing spots, whether that's a foursome. I'll just tell you right now, I rarely will create an event that involves individual playing spots. I think that that's just way too much work. I think that if we have room for, let's say, 128 golfers in the field, if I think we have to sell 128 spots versus selling 32 foursomes, I think there's a real different mindset, similar to like doing tables at a benefit auction, right? Right. And so I always am focusing on selling tables or foursomes versus selling individual spots. And so when you do that, we're going to incorporate those teams or that foursome into your sponsorships. And I'm going to tell you that you want to make sure that you focus on selling them first. A lot of times I won't even make an individual team available until we are much farther down the line in selling our sponsorships, right? Because I'm always of the opinion we can sell out the event. And so what I don't want to do is sell out those individual teams that don't have any sponsorship dollars, don't have as much profit involved in them. I don't want to sell those out first, and then the only thing I have available is those higher end sponsorships. So I always prioritize selling the sponsorships first. And then if you can name it, you probably got a pretty good chance of selling it, right? And so that's the other logic behind focusing on sponsorships first, is you might find that your market's bigger than you thought. I think it's important today to realize that through the pandemic, if there was a winning sport or a winning activity, it's golf, right? Because it was played outside, and golf is on an incredible resurgence right now. So there's a lot of folks that want to participate in golf, and that's great for all of us out there running fundraising golf tournaments. But if you can name it, you can sell it. What I mean by that, we've been creative over the years with the company that I was previously with. I mean, we've even sold the bottom of the cup at a golf tournament, and we put a logo on the bottom of the cup and called it Drano, right? I mean, and sold it to, it was a grocery event, and the person in charge of sales had actually sold it to Drano. And so there's incredible opportunities. Don't sell yourself short, right? I'm going to encourage you to use levels. And what I mean by that is too many times I see events where there is so many different sponsorships that it is almost overwhelming to even try to figure it out. Okay. And so what we tend to do is we think of 3 levels: a premier, a specialty, and a partner. And then we'll incorporate different elements into those different packages. Like the premier package might be, let's say, at a $5,000 level, and it includes hosting one of the premier social events. Okay. Whereas our specialty package might be the opportunity to sponsor one of the par threes with a hole-in-one contest, and that might only be, say, $3,500. It would be at a lower price level, but there's 4 par threes, right? So we actually have 4 specialty sponsorships, or then premier level we might have 5 or 6. I tend to find that we're somewhere in the neighborhood. If we're thinking the full field event, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But if I'm thinking I have room for 32 foursomes or 128 golfers, then I tend to think that we're going to try to sell 18 individual teams, and the other 14 will be in some form sponsorships. That's just kind of my guidelines that I'm using. So hopefully that's helpful.
And that in itself gives me a great visual of how that pie should look.
Good. Well, and that's the intent, because I think, we get caught up in naming all these different things and we don't group them together. And I think it's very difficult for the customer, for the client, to be able to look at it and identify what is best for them. And I think a lot of times organizations are looking for, where do we fit in the pecking order of supporters for this event, right? And we don't, it's tied to dollars, right? So group them by the dollar amount, makes it simpler. And I'll share some other thoughts about that here in a little bit. So first and foremost, if we're going to design the event, folks, we've got to pick a location. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, golf has never been more popular than it is right now. I serve on a few golf boards of directors, including the Oregon Golf Association, that actually operates and owns a golf course. And the popularity at this public golf course is, it's through the roof. 150% of rounds pre-pandemic compared to, before the pandemic, were just ridiculous number of rounds of golf. Now, that's a good and a bad, right? For us in the fundraising golf tournament business, it's great in that means there's a lot of people who want to play golf. It also makes it difficult because now there's not as much room at the golf course for our events, right? And traditionally, when you think of yourself coming in as an event organizer and you're going to bring your golf event to a golf course, you think that you should probably get some type of a discount off of the average daily rate. But what we're finding today is, because they can sell all those tee times, that you're buying tee times just like anybody else is, and that's pretty expensive. So I talk a lot about public versus private facilities. I think that it's very difficult to make a profit margin on a greens fee at a public golf course, or a greens fee that's known. So if I know that I can go and play this golf course for $150 green fee, then when they charge me, and even if we sell teams, Lori, they're going to do the math, right? And if it's $1,000 team, and they look at it and say, well, that's $250 a player, the greens fee is $100, am I getting $150 value on the other side? Now, that points you toward the opportunity to be able to use a private facility. And private facilities probably in some cases have become more available in this environment, right? And the reason is, yes, they have a full membership, but they're exclusive, and they haven't been able to raise their rates, right, based on the popularity, and their food costs have gone up and their operating costs, and they haven't been able to, maybe they've raised dues a little bit, but maybe not a whole lot. And in some cases, they actually rely on outside events to come and use their golf course. And so for you as the organizer, now all of a sudden it's great because you're able to offer a round of golf at somewhere that your supporter could not otherwise play golf at, right? And so now they're not doing the math and trying to figure it out. In essence, it's priceless because they couldn't go there on their own and make a tee time, right? Now, there's some downsides to that. Private clubs are going to probably require you to play on a Monday, at least in most parts of the country. That's when they will entertain an outside event, if they will at all. And you've got to be sure that your audience is willing to be able to participate in your event on a Monday. If you've got a group of people who work 9 to 5 regularly, then that's probably not a good call. Maybe you need to look at a public golf course that will have the flexibility and let you use a Saturday or a Sunday, maybe a late Friday afternoon. But if you have that higher end clientele who has the flexibility in their job hours, if they're working at all, to be able to play on a Monday, private club is a home run as always. So this is a way you get started. And then think about capacity. I'm going to always encourage you to not overfill the golf course. I'm really sensitive to, the number one thing I hear from people who play in fundraising golf events is that, wow, it took 7 hours to play. It took 6 hours to play the round of golf. And a lot of that is because we put too many people on the golf course. We think we're going to use a shotgun start. And so we want to fill it up and we'll put 36 foursomes out on the golf course. Well, being an organizer for as long as I have, I know that just flat doesn't work and it ruins the experience. And it also ruins the experience for your after golf event. You lose a lot of people that way. So try to make it a great experience. So be sensitive to your capacity at your event. I'm going to tell you, in a perfect world, 32 teams is absolutely the max that I would like to see. I would try to shoot for 24 if we can price it accordingly to still meet our goals. That's an incredible experience at 24 groups out on the golf course. That works really, really well, and pace of play is pretty good. The other thing I wanted to talk about I see happen a lot is getting your food and beverage at these facilities. You and I joke and laughed about this comment yesterday. But I always tell folks, please don't order Chinese food at a Mexican restaurant. Okay. I mean, they're not real good at making chop suey, but they're really good at enchiladas. So I always work with the caterers at the club or the golf course and ask them what they do really well. What's their signature item? What does their membership or their clientele order the most? And see if we can work that into what we're doing. You also might find, especially at a private club, that buffets are better or they prefer to do plated. Always defer to the caterer. I see somebody put in the chat there, this canon should be discussed with a course golf pro. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Kathy. I mean, visit with your pro. They're at that golf course every day, so they'll understand what they can do with respect to capacity. But same line of thought here is make sure that you talk to the culinary team there at the golf course and make sure that you're doing what they do well. The other thing, I avoid box lunches. I just think, I don't know of anybody that goes to play a round of golf on their own or with their buddies and walks in and says, hey, can I get one of those box lunches? That is the best box. I mean, it's just the best. I want one of those box lunches. I don't think anybody that pays to play in a fundraising event, I want them to feel well. I mean, we wouldn't serve a box dinner at a gala, right? So why do we get away with a boxed lunch? Walking up to it can be the prettiest box lunch ever, but a stack of box lunches that are labeled with ham, turkey, and roast beef, to me, is just, it really sets a bad tone for your event. Even if you're feeding them in the middle of the round, I'll require and ask the club to do a grill station and actually set up a grill and do burgers and dogs, and that aroma. It's a great environment. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is on-course food and beverage service. I think we all get fired up about the beverage cart, right? We enjoy finding the beverage cart. And I will only use a beverage cart as a supplement to what I call stations. And what I do with stations is I like to see 3 set locations out on the golf course. One in the middle of the front 9, one in the middle of the back 9, and one at the turn. And normally that means that the participants are going to get access to that station, or a station, 4 times in the round of golf. The reason I like that, Lori, is because I think they get a lot more consistent service. Way too many times I see that the beverage cart staff gets tipped by somebody a $50 bill or something like that. And all of a sudden that beverage cart tends to follow that group. And now some of your other players never get service and never get beverages, and you hear about it later on. So I always encourage folks, I use stations. Now, if they want to supplement those stations with a beverage cart, have at it. That's fantastic. But I like the consistency of service that we get with stations. And in a perfect situation, those stations would also be staffed, right? Because that way those people can radio to other staff at the golf course, let them know, hey, I'm running out of this brand of beverage. I need some more ice, whatever it is, right? We've all gotten that call that says, hey, they're out of, bottled water on the 3rd tee. It's like, that's a tough deal. We run around chasing our tails on that. Let's talk a little bit about format of play. I think for everybody on the group, there was a pretty big percentage that had run tournaments in the past. And they were, I think we've all been concerned with those who have handicaps that maybe not be what I would consider legitimate. And so, in the golf world, Lori, we call it sandbagging, right?
Okay.
And the problem with that is that I see all the time, organizers are concerned. Here's somebody who is supporting their event and they're not being completely honest with their handicap, or it's questionable, and they don't want to address it with them. At the same time, they've got other supporters that are being legitimate and they're irritated by it, right? So for me, one of the things that I've done is I learned this format of play from years ago with my buddies down at Greyhawk Golf Club in Scottsdale. And we started using it, and it's been phenomenally successful for us. And that is, we call it the rotating tee scramble. And what it means is we take no handicaps. So every group, the biggest challenge with handicaps, or the biggest handicap for golfers, Lori, is off the tee, right? That's where the biggest difference is between you, me, and others, okay? And so by using this format, what we do is everyone starts on the forwardmost tees, and they play a pure scramble, which means that they all hit their tee shot, they choose the best tee ball from there, and move the other 3 balls to that location. And they continue that format all the way through the hole. So they're going to end up with 1 score on that hole, right? And when they do, that score will determine the tee box that they play from on the next hole. If they make a birdie, they'll move back from that forward set of tees 1. If they make an eagle, they'll move back 2. And as I always like to say, in the unlikely event of a water landing like they do on the airplanes, if they make a bogey, they'll move up a set of tees, right? And it's been a remarkable format, because those who are not very good golfers remain on the forward tee all the way around the golf course. Those who are better will all the way get back to the back tees. And the challenge with that is it makes it tougher for them. And you would be amazed at how it levels the field. And it's just been incredibly fantastic. Now, there's a couple of little nuances there. We always ask the ladies to play from the forwardmost tees the entire round unless they want to move. We give them that option. And sometimes we'll put it in there if we have a senior group. Maybe we work with the course superintendent to make sure we don't put the back tees all the way back, different things like that. But we make it a fun time for everybody. The pace of play on this format, Lori, is ridiculously fast. I mean, we've gotten groups of 32 groups around in 4.5, 5 hours, which is an incredible pace. And that makes your event separate itself from others, right? The other thing we do on this format for those who have run golf tournaments is we do not put any minimum number of drives required from each player. I'll do something, we call it a maximum number of drives. So we'll only allow any one golfer to use their drive a maximum of 9 times. What that means is it doesn't put the undue pressure on somebody who may not be a good golfer that's out having a good time supporting your cause, putting the pressure on them to hit a good drive or two good drives out there. It also speeds up the pace of play, because when that person who's maybe not a very good golfer finally gets one airborne, and everybody says, well, are you going to get another one off the tee later in the round? And that person's kind of nervous. It's uncomfortable. You don't have to play that game. That also takes a lot of time to have that conversation, right? So when it's, you put a maximum number of drives on a player versus a minimum number, it'll speed up play tremendously. Okay. And I
can imagine happy golfers come back year after year to support it when they're enjoying their experience.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to have a great round of golf and enjoy the golf course, enjoy the facility, especially if they're a private facility, and they want to have a good time. And you want them in a good mood, because at some point you may be asking them for more money, right? And you want them, yes, you want them to come back at the next year, but you also want them to raise maybe their bid paddle or make that donation at the end of the day, whatever it is. And so I would always encourage you, pace of play, the proper on-course food and beverage service, make sure that everybody's well fed, well drank, and is also paying, not waiting in the middle of the fairway on every shot, right? So it's pretty straightforward stuff. And then there's all sorts of different ancillary events that you can do, let's say on course. And, everything from hole-in-one contests, long drives, mulligans, kicks, celebrity shot usage. I think we've heard them all, and I'm going to encourage you, to think about, is there a way for us to incorporate that into the overall entry? I see a lot of nonprofit events that, station volunteers out on every par 3. And when the group rolls up to that hole, they ask them to spend $20 per person to hit a shot and maybe, win a prize. I think if your event is corporate in nature, from the standpoint that most of the teams were bought with corporate dollars, and those organizations are hosting clients, that it's a really awkward situation to have people ask your clients for a cash, contribution in that environment. So I'm going to encourage you, think about making all those contests part of the entry. Remember, it came from a corporate checkbook, hopefully. And so that will soften that blow. And people will say, hey, what a great time. We had plenty of food and drink. We played at a fast pace. They had all sorts of little fun contests out there on the golf course. And let's talk a little bit for a second about hole-in-one contest, because I think a lot of us have, thought, hey, I need to have a car for my hole-in-one prize, right? And that's fantastic. They very rarely get given away. The other thing to think about is that if someone actually wins that car, they're going to get a 1099 for the value of that car, right? And so I don't know about you, Lori, but I don't want any really surprise 1099s for that beautiful sports car, at $100,000 or anything like that. I shared with you yesterday, I had a buddy of mine who made a hole-in-one and won a $160,000 Porsche. It was phenomenal, but he never saw the keys, right? He just took the cash and gave half to Uncle Sam, and that was fine, right? But what I'm going to encourage you to do is think about using cash prizes, okay? And when I say that, you can insure a cash prize. If you're not familiar with hole-in-one insurance and how that works, reach out, drop it in the chat. I'll follow up with you and refer you to a couple of great companies out there that do hole-in-one insurance. But you'll find it's very, very cost effective. And what I do a lot of times is I will turn around and make a $10,000 prize for the first hole-in-one on any of the 4 par 3s on the golf course. Average golf course has 4 par 3s, okay? A $10,000 cash prize might cost us $200, $300, $400 to insure that, okay? And then what I do is I make a stipulation that if they win the prize, that half comes to the nonprofit. So $5,000 to the nonprofit and $5,000 to the one who made the hole-in-one, right? And it's a great way to possibly make some more money for the charity. But I think anybody that comes to your event, if they think that they could walk away when they stand up on that first tee, that they could walk away with $5,000, $10,000 in cash, whatever your market will bear or would be important to your market, that's a great prize. Okay. And we take it a step further and we have fun, because most of the time you don't have a hole in one on those par threes, but we turn around and make another level hole in one. We call it the shootout, where we turn around and take the ones that were closest to the pin on each of those par threes, and we'll have a shootout after golf somewhere near the clubhouse, maybe the 18th green, somewhere where everybody can watch. Because the reality is, Lori, most people don't understand this. You can insure any distance. You don't have to insure a specific hole. So even though the 18th hole might be a par 4, we can say that we're going to take X number of shots from 165 yards, and we're going to insure that for a certain amount of money. So a lot of times, just to give specifics, we have 4 par 3s on the golf course. I find a sponsor for that. What we'll turn around and do is we'll let the sponsor pick one person to be in that shootout, and then we'll take the 4 that were closest to the pin throughout the day on those par 3s. So we're only insuring 5 shots, right? $100,000 prize, 50 to the charity, 50 to the winning person who hit the shot. I mean, it's a few $100s to take that, and it's a great promotional piece for that sponsor. So lots of fun. I see some notes in there. And I would tell you, we're a smaller organization. What are some prize ideas for smaller orgs? I would go with cash. The other thing you can do here, Lori, and we didn't talk about this earlier, but I am doing it more, is that a lot of us, especially on this call, are familiar with consignment companies, right? And there's nothing wrong with insuring the hard cost of that consignment package, right? So if we think about the very popular Vedanta package from Raised with R&R, that package, 7 nights in Mexico at a 4-star resort on the beach, one of the Vedanta properties, the charity can buy that for $950. Okay. The value of that could be up to $4,400 depending on when the person uses it. So the cost to insure that $1,000 is around $200. So we can turn around and identify a sponsor,
Right.
that real estate agent, that attorney, that whoever firm, that investment firm who wants to say that they're providing a $4,500 trip to Mexico for the first hole in one. We charge them $500, and it only costs us $200 to insure it. I mean, it's a home run. So lots of fun. And with Auctria, it gets even better. If you're not in a position to include the entries to all these little special contests in your overall entry fee or sponsorship fee, one of the things we like to do with Auctria is we will set up a donation item and a QR code for that. And we'll put a sign on that tee box. If you'd like to participate in this, special event, click on the QR code and we'll add it to your tab at the end of the event. So fun thing to do.
Awesome.
And then ancillary, I'm going to tell you that if you're trying to raise money running a golf tournament and it's only golf, that you're leaving money on the table. And maybe this is the auctioneer in me, but I felt this way for a long time. Definitely want to keep in mind, including whether it's an online auction. Online auctions have always been Auctria is as good as it gets when it comes to online auctions. Been doing it for 10 years. I think in a lot of markets that our audience has finally adopted it through COVID and is bigger fans of it, right? We were always concerned, a few years ago about people at our events looking at their phone all the time. That's not what happens. That's they took our Etch-a-Sketch and shook it up and down, right, Lori? And I dated myself there, didn't I? But an online auction, open it up a week before the event, have fun. You don't have to display all the items, no paper bid sheets, let people bid online, have a little live auction after golf. I'm going to tell you that live auction after golf only works if they had a good time on the golf course. If they, if the golf took too long, it doesn't work. Maybe a paddle race, nothing wrong with a paddle race, whether it's before golf at a luncheon or after golf, and then giving throughout the day with some of those special events that we talked about. So lots of fun ideas there, plenty of things to do. And then the other thing I want to talk about, because I know this is always a big challenge for a lot of organizations, Lori, is the gifts, right? We talk about tee prizes, and I'm going to encourage you to use unsized gifts, okay? Unsized gifts, what I mean by that, maybe it's a insulated coffee or an insulated mug that can be used to drink beverages throughout the day, and it's got the event logo on it. You can decide whether you date it or you don't date it. But, I don't know that any of us have too many. I know I've got a couple of drawers of insulated cups, and I use them throughout all the time to be in the truck, go somewhere, whatever. I think it's a really simple. At the end of the day, you're running a nonprofit event. At the end of the day, you're running a charity event, right? And nobody expects you to give them a leather handbag to run a charity golf event, right? So, think about something that's unsized, because the other nice thing about that is you're going to save a ton of time with collecting sizes from your participants that are going to give them to you 5 minutes before the tee time, and you had to order the product 2 months before the event, and so you never have enough. And being a unique size like I am, it always drives me nuts to show up and they don't have my size, right? And I'm like, you asked me 3 weeks ago, I gave you my size. Well, if I didn't know the business, I would think they had dropped the ball. Doesn't put a good taste in your mouth, right? But if somebody takes my place at the last minute and they give me the small shirt, doesn't work for me. if they, the person I'm replacing was a small and I'm a, multiple XLs. So I stay away from sized items. I also think the sized items only get, how many times can you wear that shirt with that logo? Whereas that coffee mug or that, some unsized item, people carry it around. People ask them about it. I think there's some promotional marketing value to it. And then awards, monetary versus trophies. Trophies, are pretty expensive nowadays. I'm going to tell you, a lot of folks like to do gift certificates. A lot of times they tend to use the golf shop that they're at, the golf course that they're at. Sometimes it's required in their contract. But I find that most of our participants aren't going back to that golf course, right? So a lot of times I'll use, maybe it's Visa gift cards, something like that. That's more, how would I say it? Universal, that people could use. Amazon gift cards are a tremendous prize at golf events. They're easy to divide, share. You can email the winners their gift card. It's a really, really slick idea that I just don't see enough people doing enough of. And then also maybe the gift card fits the audience. I'm doing an event for a construction company, and we give away Cabela gift cards, right? Well, that's their market. It works really well. Very popular stuff. So I know I said a lot there. I know we've got some questions. You wanted me to show a couple of sites. Is that what you said, Lori?
Yeah, you brought along the receipts. You brought the in real life examples, and I would love for you to share that with everybody.
Yeah. Let me see if I can do that for you.
This screen happens to be the demo, a template that's already created within the Auctria platform for a golf template. So you can plug and play, get up and running. And it was designed by Patrick, because I wouldn't know how to design a golf template. So again, I went to the expert and I said, how should this look?
Well, this is fantastic.
These are a couple that are up and running now, right?
Yeah, this is an event we're doing in August. This is for that construction company. This is a pretty straightforward site, right? We went out and set it up for them. We tell them the basic information. One of the things I like to do is I run a picture carousel here from all the pictures from the previous year, right? So people kind of remember what a great time they had. We're showcasing the beneficiaries of the event. This construction company picks 3 new beneficiaries every year to support. And so we do that, make sure we give our sponsors a lot of help. And then we point right to signing up. And as you can see, we use a catalog format to show all the different sponsorships. People can click on it, buy it right here. One of the things I love about this, Lori, is that so many of our charity events today are run by a committee, okay? And they put together a sales kit, and that sales kit is out of date as soon as it gets printed, right?
The moment it's printed is
the moment it is printed. And so what I like to try to encourage our groups to do is, let's not print anything. Let's not make PDFs and send them to emails that end up in people's trash. Okay, it ends up in their junk email. Let's make this website using Auctria, and let's all we got to do is send people to that website. Put the QR code on anything printed. If you're going to print something, don't put your whole inventory, things like that. but we make it easy for people to sign up. We also make these instant pay, so they have to pay right away. So we're not saving spots for people that don't come through later. We have a little spot about our venue, where it's located, some of the highlights. This is at a private club. So this is a fun, simple event for a construction company, a little bit more corporate in nature. Then I'm showcasing, this is an event. My kids go to Beaverton High School, and they reached out to me to help them with running their alumni golf tournament. And so here's this one, and it is up and running. We got the event date. We got all the pictures from the year before. We've got our sponsors. Now this one right now, Lori, to my point earlier, we're in the process of giving the people who were sponsors a year ago first right of refusal. So instead of, we've got the website live, but people can't buy anything right now. Okay. We're in the process of reaching out to all of the sponsors and saying, are you back in this year? And as they are, we're updating that information, and then we'll release it to fill those individual teams after we've sold those sponsorships, right? So here we just created a button that get notified when registration opens. And like, I know it surprised you yesterday, but this is just the standard registration for the event. And then we'll be able to send them an email when we open the website, or text them, because of all the flexibility that Auctria gives us. So hopefully that was helpful.
Absolutely. Because I always tell people, I'm like, don't send people to your website unless they can do something, and they can do something. They can purchase a sponsorship, or they can go ahead and register themselves for the information.
Absolutely. So I think that I have.
You did. And I put a couple screenshots on here just so people have it in the slides. That was the BHS, and that's the real life wash construction.
Wash construction, yeah.
And then Patrick, you do an amazing job every Wednesday afternoon on your live streams. And usually my webinars are at 1 Eastern time, of course. And then as I'm editing, I usually tune into you, because there's always some sort of fun little snippet you've got there. And I encourage you to follow Patrick on Facebook. And he has live streams that happen every Wednesday, and he's talking fundraising Bidness talk. And there's a link there if you want to watch back any of the playbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's fun. You know, I think, Lori, you kind of got me started on the live streaming deal, right? And got me all fired up. I mean, we started doing live streaming of benefit auctions back in March of 2020, but you got me on StreamYard, and away I went, right? And this is a fun passion of mine. I think our topic today here in an hour or so is we're doing 3 fundraising events next week, all 3 different formats. And so we're going to be chatting about their uniqueness and how they fit the organization that we're doing it for. So yeah, love people to tune in.
I love that. And then, like I said, Patrick did a webinar for us almost about a year ago on using Auctria for golf tournaments. So if you want part B of this conversation, that playback is available too on all of the setup. And then here's how to stay in touch. Patrick, you're very active on Facebook and Twitter. And then, of course, your website is the best way to reach you. Email?
Yeah, email, or you can actually, if you go to the website, Lori, as you know, I have a Calendly connection there, and then feel free, jump on my calendar. You can get a half hour or an hour. I love to chat, answer your questions, see if there's a way that I can help you. At the end of the day, you know, it's all about raising money to help support the causes, and that's what I'm all about. So.
Absolutely. And then if you're new to Auctria, Facebook, Twitter, we post regularly. On Pinterest, we have over 500 pins that go directly to donation request pages. And then my fun place to hang out is our Facebook group, Auction Team Talk. I think we're almost at 600 people on there right now, Patrick.
I love it. I'm on there all the time.
I see you chiming in. So there's all sorts of people that are running auction event fundraisers, and people like Patrick that are chiming in also and helping support the community there. So I appreciate each and every one of you for participating. You can answer a thread on there. You can start a thread on there. It's your Facebook page to use. So Patrick, there's a couple questions that have come in since we've checked the chat post. Question from Kathy asks, how do we accommodate sponsors golfers who are not digital users?
Yeah, I don't think they need to be a digital user. I mean, at the end of the day, the majority of our communication goes to the person that is um, buying the sponsorship or buying the team. Okay, and when I talk about when she says not a technical um, user or technology user, hopefully they get email. Would be the first thing, or go and visit with them and walk them through the process about securing a sponsorship. I mean, you've got to handhold some people, but I would not not use technology. I think one of the things I've noticed in talking to nonprofits, it seems to be true. In fact, I was visiting with our mutual friend AJ Steinberg yesterday, and she made the same observation down in the Malibu area, and that is that for whatever reason, I think volunteers are harder to find right now than ever. And so I think we really, as organizers, really need to embrace the technology as best as we can. And so, but that means you're also going to have to handhold those few folks in your organization, in your audience, that do not embrace it. So
right,
that's okay. And with Auctria, you can do it all on the back end yourself, right? Somebody doesn't have to, they don't have to use the website to purchase that team. I mean, if somebody tells you, hey, count me in, I'll say, what's your email address? I'll send it to you. And I turn around and I sell them a team on the back end and send them the statement. I mean, Auctria makes it really easy across the board.
Absolutely. Kathy has a question about the companies that insure. She said that the one that she had spoken to, they requiring videotape requirements. They didn't, speaking of volunteers, they didn't have the volunteers to cover that. Can you address that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I wrote her a note back.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
No, not at all. I'll say it out loud because I'm typing away here in the chat. But I find that videotaping is required. Even in some cases, I know I've done some $1 million prizes, and we've had to have law enforcement witnesses and all sorts of things, right? So think about what you're insuring, and think about what's going to get the people's attention. Okay. But I find that if it's over 100,000, that videotaping is usually a requirement. Anything over, I would say probably 50,000 is going to require maybe your PGA professional at the venue to be a signed witness. And I'm going to tell you this too, do not shortcut these things. Okay. Because over the last 30 years, I've given away a lot of prizes, as when you do it as much as I do. Mm-hmm. And it is no fun to have those affidavits, you got to sign and whatnot. So, I would think if you're worried about that videotaping and not having the volunteers, my answer would be, insure a lesser prize. And that's the interesting thing about that consignment package idea we talked about, Lori, is that trip has a fair market value of, let's say, $4,000 or $4,500. The cost to the nonprofit's only $1,000. So at $1,000 prize, you're only insuring $1,000, but the winner's getting a $4,500 trip. You're not going to have any videotaping requirements. And I'll tell you what, when the average golfer shows up on the par 3 tee and sees they might win a week in Mexico, they're pretty happy. Right? It doesn't have to be $50,000. It doesn't have to be a car. Because remember, when you give them that car, you got to send them a 1099. They're probably never going to get the car, right? They're going to just take the cash and pay Uncle Sam. So I like cash prizes for smaller organizations a lot. And Kathy just chimed in there about getting a sponsor to underwrite a consignment package. Amen to that. In fact, I think that in Fundraising Business Talk, probably episode 3 or 4 is a whole hour that I spent with auctionpackages.com talking about the underwriting process of how to underwrite consignment packages. I think it's a total home run. And I reached out this morning to one of my insurers that we use for hole-in-one insurance and confirmed that they absolutely, think that that's a good way to do it. So absolutely, Kathy, you should definitely try to get any consignment, whether it's in your gala or it's in your golf tournament. Always try to get that consignment package underwritten.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say, take that tidbit and use it, throughout all your auction event fundraising activities.
Absolutely. Even if it's yeah. I mean, consignment, I think today, since COVID, Lori, it's been harder to get organizations to donate. Especially a lot of our vacation packages were people that were donating their personal vacation homes. They seem to be a little less generous in that area, or maybe they're a little hesitant. And consignment works great because you can multiply it. You can do all sorts of different things. And also, back to the less volunteers in the environment today, I think that it's so much easier for the organization to execute. You're not trying to be the middle person on booking that trip, 6 months from now.
Absolutely. Once you turn it over to them and they concierge it, and you don't have to worry about it at all. And the consignment packages really run from low to high. It doesn't have to be an extravagant, 30-day round trip around the world kind of thing. You can
make it fit
for your group.
Make it fit your group. Definitely make it fit your organization. Think about your audience. I say, it's simple sales 101. Ask people what they want, and if you can give it to them, give it to them. Right? I mean, don't overthink this stuff. Right? And then I see a note from Suzanne. We're thinking of having a rib dinner and dance after the golf tournament, free for golfers. But then I'm going to tell you right away, Suzanne, do not ever use the word free. Free by definition has no value. Okay. And that is a value proposition when you're giving them dinner. So I would say at no additional cost for the golfers. But then we can sell tickets to the dinner dance event. Good idea or bad? Absolutely. I'm going to tell you, think about your market. Think about your market, Suzanne. And I would say that you want to definitely include it at no extra cost for your golfers. And if you have the demand, then go ahead and sell what I call a social only ticket, which invites people to come out. I tend to put a little bit of a premium on that because remember, your golfers that are participating, when they see that they could just come to the dinner for $25, then that's the value that they assign to it within their package, right? So I might up that a little bit, include the beverages, make sure I have all my cost associated with having that individual at the dinner. And maybe it's a $50, $75 dinner, even though your hard cost may be less than that. But you want to make sure that you protect the integrity of your package to the golfer.
Smart. Awesome. Any other questions or comments? You can always email Patrick, and
absolutely,
right, like you said, you do have that calendar link right on your website, which makes it so easy to get in touch. You find something that's convenient for both of you. Kristen has a follow-up question. Are golfers too tired to attend an event after? Such a good question. Kristen, that's a question I would ask too.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if it's 150 degrees outside and they played a 7-hour round of golf, yes, you're correct. They're too tired to attend an event after. And in that case, I would invite them to a lunch event, right? And have a little bit more of a formal lunch opportunity where maybe there's an ask, right? Or there's a QR code. Remember, if you've sold your teams to maybe one person and they're inviting guests, those guests haven't supported your cause yet. Okay. Right. And if we're not going to nickel and dime them around the golf course, I'm going to encourage you, use that QR code in Auctria to get them to the website and encourage them to make a donation, right? And they can make it throughout the day. As far as after the event, Kristen, I would say there's a couple of things. Day of the week, okay? If your event's on a Friday and it's a corporate event and you're cutting into people's weekends with an after golf Friday night event, may be challenging. I would also encourage you to think about your pace of play. If you've right-sized your event and people are getting done with your golf event, the golf portion within about 5 hours, then no, they should be ready for an immediately following. Everybody plays golf and goes to the 19th hole. Okay. We call it the 19th hole reception pretty regularly. So yeah, it's unique to your event, Kristen, but it can be make sure you know your audience before you say yay or nay on that. And then, is it a bad idea to only do a 9-hole tournament if we're doing the Rip Dan or Dance? It's an interesting concept. It's the same number of people. The golf course is probably going to be a little bit more challenged to allow you to do a 9-hole event. I'm assuming you're talking about, Suzanne, an 18-hole facility. But, I don't know that I would do that. You could, maybe you could work something out. So it's a, 4:00 start and they play for 2.5 hours and then they do a dinner, or maybe it's a 3:00 start. I'm actually doing an event for a group in the late summer, another group that's at a par 3 golf course. And, it's going to be great. They're going to play 9 holes and then we're going to have a reception and that whole deal. So lots of fun ideas out there. We're doing a Saturday. So Suzanne says doing a Saturday golf tournament, 3 p.m. start. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't do something afterwards, because if it's a standard, 5 hours, that's 8:00. It's way past dinner time for most people. And it's a Saturday night. I think you'd have a pretty good demand if you could do a 3:00 start, 9 holes that gets you done, let's say 5:30, 6:00, and a little reception and then dinner at 7. Sure, that might be well. Make sure you work it out with the golf course, though, because if you're going to do a shotgun start at 3:00, that means they have to have everybody off the golf course, which means that they have to quit sending people off the first tee probably 4.5, 5 hours before your deal. So you're eating up a lot of that golf course tee time. And you're only going to want to play for 9-hole greens fees because they're only playing 9. They may charge you more than you think. So work with your club pro, your golf professional there, meeting planner, whoever you're working with, to make sure you understand how that works.
There's a lot of math going on here, Patrick.
There is a lot of math. Absolutely. I mean, and that's at the end of the day. And that's why that first slide, Lori, is about designing your event, budget it, inventory it so that you know that you can generate the revenue, and make sure that that inventory is affordable to your audience. And then you're going to go back and redesign it, right? Maybe I didn't, if we talk about our house model, maybe I didn't need that workout facility. I don't know. Or maybe I didn't need that home theater because it didn't really fit my budget. It's the same way in designing your golf event. What I'm going to encourage you to do is create that design and then stick with it. And I'm also going to encourage you to not discount your inventory. Okay. So, just because you're getting close to the event and somebody wants to give you, 75 cents on the dollar for that sponsorship, protect the integrity of your event and do not discount it, because you will never be able to charge them 100%.
Totally agree with that. People want to do that, when they're during auctions, and, there's always a lag in the middle of an auction and they get panicked and like, oh my God, we should drop our starting prices. No. Don't.
Well, don't get me started on starting prices. We're already way over your normal time limit. So that's great advice, Lori. And it holds true in this industry too. On the golf side, is just really don't discount your product. It may take you a while to fill it up, but you're going to get it there. And because you're providing a quality experience. Right. And part of it is, especially when you dive into this, there was many people doing their first event. I'm going to encourage you to, you may make some modifications that next year, but that first year, stick to your guns and provide that quality experience, because it's that experience that people have will determine your success the next year. I don't care how worthy your cause is. If they don't have a good time at your event, they're not coming back.
Right. And that happens for the galas too. If they enjoy themselves, they will come back, and these events grow from year to year to year. Especially
when you have fundraising components like auctions and things where there's, it's pretty tough to make an incremental increase in the cost of participation. Mm-hmm. You have to have those ancillary events that we talked about, whether it's auctions, paddle raises, things of that nature, to really, those numbers can drive and increase each year. You're not going to be able to charge more for that same golf course or that same prime rib dinner. It's got to be those ancillary things, and that's why you have to incorporate them into your event.
Awesome. Patrick, it looks like the questions are quieting down. I'm sure they're going to reach out to you.
Absolutely. I'll look forward to it, Lori. Yeah.
I always wish people bids that soar and they crush their fundraising goals, but I guess in this case, I hope they get low golfing numbers and things like that.
Let's call it, let's say fairways and greens and mini one putts. Okay. And at the same time, bid high and bid often.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Lori. Have a great day. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Reach out if I can help you out in any way.
Awesome. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.